Hi everyone, my topic is mental health, and I chose specifically to focus on prisoner mental health. So, a little bit of an introduction. The mental health includes our psychological, emotional, and social well being. And a large number of individuals suffer from mental health issues, and a lot of these people do not even realize they are suffering. I think this is something that has um, dwindled down a little bit in 2019 as we are becoming more and more aware of our mental health, and we have a lot more people advocating now to seek treatment, seek help if you don't feel right. And I think that is something that we have been growing towards. But however, a lot of people still do not realize that they should not be feeling a certain way. And there are a lot of warning signs that indicate a mental health issue that can help diagnose and then, of course, offer treatment. So, like I said, my chosen policy was prisoners and mental health. A large number of prisoners that face a mental health issue or disorder are often placed in solitary confinement for actions they often have no control over. It is something that is caused by their mental illness. So, 2 million people with a mental illness are placed in prison each year. That seems like a pretty high number. In fact, in 2014, there were more people suffering from mental illness in a jail than there were in a psychiatric ward, which seems a little bit crazy because that's the place where they are supposed to go to seek treatment. Those people are actually trained to help these people, whereas a jail is not as trained. The officials do not exactly know how to handle such issues that arise with having a mental health issue. Women in jail are 6 times more likely to suffer from mental illness than those in the general population. So when a woman enters jail, she is more likely to be screened and then thus diagnosed from a mental illness than someone just in the general population. So my question, are prisons or jails equipped to treat those with a mental illness? And then on the left side and the right side, I have split, a discussion about this. So both jails and prisons do have a duty that they must provide mental health services to individuals to prevent harm. So if there's someone that is threatening to hurt themselves or hurt others, they must provide them with treatment. And like I mentioned on the slide before, prisoners are screened upon entry to detect any mental disorders that they may not even be aware they are suffering from. And this seems like a really good idea, but however, if the inmate does not think that they themselves are suffering, they are allowed to refuse treatment, which then goes on to have lead to further complications with themselves, with the inmates, with the guards. Okay, on the right side. In 2011, there was a Supreme Court case, Brown versus Plata, which released 40,000 prisoners due to inadequate mental and physical health care. That is just a very high number, and that's just so sad that these people were not receiving the proper treatment that they deserve. Kevin DeMott in 2011, he suffered from a bipolar disorder and received no treatment at a Michigan prison. Instead, he was placed in solitary confinement. This is him right here in the picture right here. You can see he's chained up and has a helmet on his head because he kept bashing his head on the wall. His mother actually said that he was worse off when he came out of jail because he just received no treatment and no help. Many officials are not properly trained to treat the mentally ill, and thus they resort to using solitary confinement and restraining devices because they do not know how to properly treat these individuals. They think they are dangerous, and they just want to keep them away from everyone else. Mentally ill inmates cost the county and state more due to the treatment that they are required to receive. So a more effective treatment thus does cost more money from the community. There has been a lot of closings of hospitals and treatment agencies, which results in more individuals remaining in prison longer and thus more money being spent to keep them in prison and keep them getting that treatment. Here's a proposed bill. This is by Senator John Cornyn in Texas. It's the Mental Health and Safe Communities Act. This act would do several things. It would make assisted outpatient treatment eligible for federal funding. This would include some transitional services for inmates that were in jail and did get released. It would fund mental health courts. I think this is extremely important that these people are going to trial and receiving a just trial with their mental illness in mind. This promotes the training of officers to deal specifically with those suffering from mental illness. This is extremely important as well, as they need to know how to treat these individuals and that they are not just like every other inmate. And it also would require that a report be filed in cases involving a suspect that suffers from mental illness. That way, right off the bat, everyone knows that this individual is suffering from mental illness, and that needs to be taken into account with his trial, where he is placed, and how long he's going to be held in jail. The status of this bill, it was in the Senate on February 10th, 2016, and then had a committee on the judiciary. Hearings have been held. This bill is supported by many, but it has not made much progress, unfortunately, since 2016. There has been another bill proposed. This was proposed by Senator Richard Durbin. This was the Solitary Confinement Reform Act. It aimed to do away with traditional solitary confinement as it does not meet the appropriate level of care. It then aims to do more transitional processes, and inmates diagnosed with a mental disorder shall not be placed in solitary confinement under no circumstance. I do think this bill is a good idea. I think nothing good comes from solitary confinement. I think it only makes the inmate worse in some regards. This bill, unfortunately, has not passed. It has currently been introduced to the Senate, so it still has several steps to go. It's in the preliminary stages, but hopefully that will be placed into act one day, because I think it is very important. In conclusion, prisons in 2019 are still not fully equipped to treat those with mental illness, so more education and training is completely necessary. Those two bills that I mentioned, I'm sure there's more. They have been proposed to combat this, but like I said, they're still in the preliminary stages, so they still have a little while to go before they are put into action. We have to keep in mind that better treatment means more money, which is going to cause some people to not support these bills because they do not want to spend more money on those that are in prison for something that they have done. But that does not mean, in my opinion, that these people do not deserve proper care. And lastly, jails are being overcrowded and facilities are being closed, resulting in, like I said, individuals with mental health issues remaining in jail longer, and then when they get out of jail, there are no services or agencies in place, or less at least, that they can go to and receive help and continue on their path to recovery. So there's a lot of steps that need to be taken into account here, and I really hope that these bills and more bills like it, those are proposed to help combat this prisoner mental health issue. And here are my references.